someone from our assessment office, and we have our rehabilitation services school counselor coordinator with us too. So we all thought about this in the context of what we do already with transition and with assessments. So I believe we're going to start with our assessment person. So she's on first.
I'm Beth Chipoletti. As she said, I'm in the Office of Assessment and Accountability, and I'm responsible for all the national assessments in West Virginia, which covers SCORE for 8th graders, Plan for 10th graders, Compass for 12th graders, and a remedial math course in NAEP. And all students, and I want to stress that it's all students in West Virginia, not just for students with disabilities or without, begin in the 8th grade to develop an ISTP, an Individualized Student Transition Plan. And this is required by Policy 2510. That is what I think of as our graduation requirements. It lists the courses that are required. For example, 2510 requires all high schools to offer at least 4 AP courses. And it's very important that this ISTP plan be developed in conjunction with the parent. It varies from school to school how this is actually done, and the school counselor is a person who facilitates this within the school. And you see that the grade span is not just at the end of high school. The students, when they develop this plan, they are to look beyond high school. What are they going to do the first year afterwards? And a part of the plan is to do some career exploration. As 8th graders, they develop a career pathways. As a high school student, they will take courses that relate to their career interests. They may do some work in career technical. It just varies on what their program of studies will be. Also in West Virginia, for the school counselors, or some schools have an advisor program. There has been a curriculum that has been developed, and it's called LINKS. You can see it's an acronym: Learning, Individualized Needs, Knowledge, and Skills. It's a research-based and standard-based, and these are by grade level. And it has resources, curriculum maps, tools. If you would actually go to the department's website and look at links, it has the name of the lesson and then the resources are there, and they're all hot links, so no one has to go someplace else to see the materials right there. And again, you're going to see the word all. And I did copy this verbatim from the link site. It's designed to enhance academic, career, and personal social development for all middle and high school students. We heard this morning the differentiation between academic skills and soft skills that students need to be successful, whatever they're going to pursue after school. And this program is designed to emphasize both the hard skills, the academic, and the soft skills that all people need. Within the curriculum, you see again that the emphasis is not just on academics, but it also includes the soft skills, school success skills. One of the links lesson plans is on decision making. Think about the type of decisions that students in the middle school and the high school are faced with on a daily basis. How do they make the right decision? How do they decide what is right, even if their friends are applying pressure for them to make a different type of decision? We heard about businesses want people who can pass the drug test and show up on time. One of the topics is the work ethic. To help the school counselors with this, protocols have been developed. And the protocols are detailed enough that even a first-year counselor can follow the information. There are sample forms, and one of the forms in West Virginia, counselors are having to document how they spend their time to show that they are with students the right amount of time during the day instead of doing administrative responsibilities. What type of form do they use? There are sample forms for the ones who choose not to develop their own. The pros and cons might be identified. And again, this is by programmatic level and area of practice. There are protocols that have been developed to help counselors to interpret, explore, and plan results. Explore is for 8th grade, plan is for 10th. And if you've never heard of these tests, these are by ACT. They're pre-ACT tests, I could call them, that have the same 4 content areas as the ACT, which is English, math, reading, and science. In West Virginia, all students, except those participating in our alternate assessment, take, explore, and plan. They are to take these tests with the appropriate accommodations as identified by the IEP, 504 plan, or LEP, participation form. And we take it very, very seriously. In fact, there are situations where I can tell you there are letters of reprimand in individuals' personnel file because they failed to provide the appropriate accommodations to a group of students. And a tool to help monitor accommodations has been developed for Exploring this year. All of the schools receive pre-slugged Scantron sheets with the accommodations for the students there. And after testing, they were to verify that those accommodations have been provided. With Explore and Plan, the students, as with the ACT, if you've done this for your own children or you've worked with it, when I say your own children, I have filled out more applications for the ACT and SAT than I have ever thought I would do so. But I think it's pretty tempting. But the students are to ask, what is your career interest? And they're given a list. They self-report. This is in 8th grade. There is an interest inventory where students are asked to say like, dislike, indifferent to activities. One might be cut the grass. The interests reflected from that are interpreted in a World of Work map. If I'm speaking in different languages, I'll explain at a later time, I'd be happy to. And it opens a dialogue because even at 8th grade, students' interests may not match, but they said they're interested in a career. And to help with an example, in a former life I was teaching in college and I was working with a freshman group of students, and one of the activities to help students think about who they are, we were going through it, and I had a student saying, I'm not going to do this. I said, okay. He said, I will never have a job where I have to make a decision where it's a life or death decision that I will make. His major ended up to be environmental science. He knew who he was. And the Explore and Plan results. If you remember the previous slide, I talked about Policy 2510. It states in Policy 2510 that when the students develop their ISTP and they revise it in the 10th grade, they are to use the Explore and Plan information. And again, if you're not familiar with Explore and Plan, they provide and measure college readiness, as does the ACT. There are benchmarks the ACT has developed, and if students hit these scores, I know I'm talking about a particular cut point now, but if they have these scores or exceed them, they are on track to be ready academically for college level classes in English, math, science, and social sciences. Now for workies, I'll turn it over to
Yes, this truly is a tag team. My name is Tracy Chenoweth, and I am the assessment coordinator for Career and Tech Ed, or CTE.
Okay, and I am Sherry Nash, and I'm the CTE School Improvement Coordinator.
The reason that we want to talk to you a little bit about our CTE program is that it is a very vibrant program in the state of West Virginia. We have a wonderful support and a wonderful structure for our CTE and our CTE students. And we do things just a little bit differently, but we also realize the importance of our special needs students, and which make up about 20% of our population. We use the ACT work keys, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it offers a plethora of tests that students can take with regards to college and career readiness. The three that we use as an accountability factor, as you'll see on the slide, are the applied mathematics, the reading for information, and the locating information. Now, with these tests through ACT, we are providing our students with the required and the necessary accommodations as listed by their IEP. So that could be, as you see in my example, extra time. It can also have the use of a scribe. It could be they need to take the paper and pencil versus the online application and so on. But again, I must stress that our accommodations always apply with the student's IEP and what has been prescribed for that individual student. In completion of the tests, the 3 battery tests, of course the West Virginia Department of Ed pays for these tests for them, students can obtain a gold, a silver, or a bronze level with regards to recognition. This credential is sponsored by our governor and has been for a number of years, so it's passed through several sitting governors, but we call it our Governor's Ready to Work certificate. And that is matched with local and statewide business and industry who value and will actually take this credential with regards to hiring practices ahead of those students or individuals that might not have this. So in some cases, we have seen that our students that come to a hiring position, if you will, with a gold, silver, or bronze level certification, they would bypass a long line of applicants simply because our business and industry recognize that this is such a valuable tool in doing exactly what it does, and it establishes that baseline of educational needs at that level.
Okay, one thing that we are seeing is we are seeing some great results of our students that are special needs that are taking the online work keys assessments. So that was one thing a lot of people feared, and we heard that this morning. But in this digital age, with a lot of the digital, is it immigrants? The digital natives, we are digital immigrants. These digital natives, when they're taking the assessment with their peers, they are excelling.
And we're very successful in the fact that this year we had an 82% certification rate, which is very impressive, meaning that at minimum, 82% of our students scored at least a bronze level certificate. So it's pretty impressive. And that listing, if you will, updates regularly because we're constantly going out in the business and industry and explaining what the ACT Work Keys does, and as we're profiling different companies to find out what the minimum task levels are and what they need with regards to math, reading, and locating information. Those lists of companies are updated very regularly. And Dr. Nash is quite right. We did an ad hoc study and found that our students do participate a little bit better on our online work keys, those being students with special needs, simply because they want to be there with their peers. And I heard somebody say that this morning, which is very important. They don't want to be segregated. They don't want to be seen as the student that is using the paper and pencil version. You know, they're quite aware of what's going on. So when given the opportunity to test in both formats, our small little ad hoc study indicated that our students are outperforming on the online version, which is amazing. It's quite amazing. So we're going to continue that study as we go. In addition to our work keys, we provide our students in CTE the opportunity to take what's called the Global 21 Performance Assessment. So we performance assess all of our CTE completers. And by definition, a completer is a student who has completed the 4 core concentration classes in their concentration. So that's a student that's been with us for as many as 4 years or at minimum 2 years. The test is composed of a written and oral performance, and some people call that the hands-on or the demonstration, and a safety/work habits component. Again, these tests are all supported by what is prescribed in the student's IEP, and accommodations are set forth from the beginning. These tests are actually supported by and assessed by our business and industry folks. We're very fortunate in West Virginia to have a very good advisory board across the state with regards to obtaining business and industry input. So we have and invite folks from business and industry to actually come in and assess our students on that performance piece. So for example, if we have a student who is doing a 12-point inspection on a vehicle in an automotive collision or an automotive repair class, the folks that are actually conducting and actually evaluating that student's performance are our business and industry representatives. And we rotate them through on a regular basis.
One of my favorite parts of my job is traveling around to schools, and I get to interview students to find, what are the great strategies. And I had one student, I was asking about the global performance assessment. She was a senior, and I said, can you tell me a little bit about that? And she said, I love that test. So I mean, how many places do you hear a student saying they love assessment? So that's been very valuable.
Now, to match sort of the performance levels that the ACT Work Keys does, and matching our Governor's Workforce Readiness, our students are also, based on their achievement level, awarded a gold, silver, or bronze certificate, again, based on their performance. So, in fact, upon completion of the 2 assessments for CTE and the portfolio building process, our students can obtain 2 certificates at varying degrees. We are currently, since we've been doing performance assessments for about 3 years and trying to refine that process, we are currently in the works of a formative assessment approach. And we're beginning that through a number of ways. And first of all, we're identifying or dissecting, if you will, the concentrations to identify core skill sets within the curriculum. We're also aligning that to our common core, if you will. We're aligning that to business and industry, in addition to the standards that we have to meet through Career Tech Ed. We are beginning a portfolio-based approach this year. We started with health sciences, and the reason that we did is simply because they have one of the best structures for portfolio development because it's based on the national HOSA standards. Again, if you're not familiar, our curriculum is also supported by national organizations. So for example, the FBLAs, the DECA, the Skills USA, and the HOSA. So we have national organizations that part of our curricula revolve around these ready-to-work skills. So it's just part of our curriculum naturally. After we identify our skill sets, we are able to run our students through formative assessment approaches that are identified by those skill sets. For example, CPR is one. Infection control might be another. But all of those certifications are based on the concentration themselves. And we utilize individual assessment choices and allow students to actually choose what parts of their assessments they want to take. So again, that goes back to what Dr. Nash said. We have some students who really like to participate in our exams, and it's kind of neat.
One thing we did find when we go out to schools, teachers need tools. There's not a lot of time where they can make these connections. So we're building a database. We call it IRT. It's an instructional resource tool, and it takes the Career Technical Education Standard skill set. It aligns it with the core standard. It aligns it with ACT Work Keys. And the beautiful part of it is there's a resource directory where they can click and they can find formative assessments that relate. And our teachers are saying, hey, we need some assistance on accommodations and some things specific to our special needs students related to that career cluster, if it's auto mechanics or whatever. So we are getting ready to work on a task force to identify those resources so they can online go in and at a click, they can get the resources that apply to those needs.
Thank you. Now we'll turn it over.
I'm Susan Weinberger, and I work with West Virginia Rehabilitation Services, and I supervise our transition counselors who are assigned to each of the high schools in West Virginia and help the students transition out of high school into the adult world. So one of the main issues that we have and that we spend a lot of time on is educating the educators as well as parents and students about the differences in eligibility program versus an entitlement program. So our agency is an eligibility program and not an entitlement. A lot of people have difficulty understanding that when they're so used to being given things and being provided instruction and assessment through the public school system. Then as they move into the adult world, understanding that they have to disclose what their disability is in order to get services, or they have to meet eligibility requirements for particular programs. I'll just give you a brief overview. Eligibility for rehabilitation services is based on the person having a physical or a mental disability that causes them an impediment to employment. And as a result of that, they have to require and need rehabilitation services in order to become prepared for or engage in or retain their employment. Another difference between the education program and the VR program or the adult world is some of the language that we use. In the school system, having a significant disability or being a most severe disabled student is not necessarily the same as it will be in voc rehab. In rehabilitation services, we look at a person's disability or the severity of their disability based on the number of functional limitations they might exhibit, the number of services they might require to overcome those limitations, and the time period that it takes us to administer those services to assist them in becoming prepared for jobs. The other issue that we have is employment outcomes. We're there, that is our main goal and the main emphasis of everything that we do in our services. We're not there just to provide things or stuff to people, or not even exclusively as a training program, or even helping people to achieve their independence. All of those things and all of the services we provide are geared towards that person's employment and making them successful in employment. Some of the assessments